This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We're honored to continue and share the teachings of the founding father of science of epigenetics, Dr. Joel Wallach. This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We're honored to continue and share the teachings of the founding father of science of epigenetics, Dr. Joel Wallach.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. My name is Becca Dukes. As a certified holistic health coach, certified naturopathic practitioner, and someone who is deeply passionate about helping you rebuild your body from the inside out using the right nutritional building blocks. It is my honor and privilege to provide this resource to you and your communities. So today is going to be a great show as we have somebody that we absolutely love having come back on the show with us, as he has a unique insight into the beginnings of the nutrition from the inside out. We'll get back into that. But folks, this program, like I said, is a resource, and if you were invited to this program by somebody specific, make sure that you get back with them, as they cared enough about you to share this program and information, care enough about them to, at minimum, say thank you. And remember, they're going to be your number one contact. If they referred you, get back with them, ask your questions there. If they don't have the answers, they may know how to get the answers. And if they're just a friend wanting to share great information and don't have any answers, we do have a team standing by on my phone team at 855-949-3377. Again, that's 855-949-3377, available to take your calls. Now, again, this team is for people who are not currently working with somebody and not currently taking any of the products that are mentioned on our program. So with that being said, like I said, we've got somebody that's returning to the show with us, one of the favorites, and that is Richard Renton, also known as Dr. Dirt. And if you've heard him before, you already know he brings a whole different level to understanding when it comes to how the body works, and even the soil, how it actually works. So today's conversation is going to be about those common sports injuries, whether it's playing pickleball, football, basketball, does not matter, as how you support your body can help you to avoid injury in the first place. So we're talking about what's really going on when injuries happen, whether it's joint pain, muscle strain, or slow recovery, and more importantly, how proper nutrition and supplementation can help your body stay strong, resilient, and ready for whatever you put it through. We're not only going to stop there, folks, because we're going to be diving into something that connects it all, the soil. Because if your soil is depleted, your food is depleted, and ultimately your body is depleted. So we're going to be mentioning a product, something that I use every single day with my gardening and even my houseplants. So please help me welcome to the screen Richard Renton. Hello, Richard. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. I hope
It's
you're
so
having a
great to be on
fantastic
with you
day.
again.
Well, you are just, I remember the first time I met you in person in Cabo, just before we got shut down from being able to fly. I was very thankful a week later that we made it back to the States.
So
um,
anyways, go ahead. Sorry. I'm
well,
just so
we just had
anxious to
some
get
great
into
conversations.
this.
I know. We had some great conversation about nutrients and, methylation and, how plants are grown and soil. And I just am so glad that you come on and share your wisdom with us here on the Daily with Doc and Becca. And because you have that experience in sports at university levels as a trainer, and beyond, I think this is a perfect topic to have you on and going through with us and this is the reason why. I was having a conversation with one of my sons. One of my granddaughters continually is having issues with tendons and ligaments being strained as a dancer. And I told him, I said, there's things that you can do. And she's like, Dad, I want some more of that dragon fruit stuff, which is the pollen burst. But let's go a little deeper into that. So no matter what age you are in sports, there's things that you can do to help yourself or help your kids or grandkids if they're not able to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's just jump right into it. Thank you, Richard, for being on today.
Yeah. So to kind of give some background about me, and then you'll understand where everything's changed. Pre-college and my first 2 years in college, I was a baseball freak. And I was a catcher and then played at collegiate level and was actually drafted into the National Baseball League. And between going to my first camp and being drafted, I got taken out at home plate as a catcher and I tore out my knee. And that, Houston was very nice to me, but they politely said, we're not going to invest any money in you because catchers with bad knees just don't work out in baseball at the beginning of their career. So I had to pick out something different to do with my life. And so I went back to University of Oregon and got my first degree in physical education and sports medicine. Also got an undergraduate in biochemistry, and then I got a postgraduate and became board certified athletic trainer and nutritionist. And so you kind of see where baseball and sports, I was into it. I had my ups and downs with it. People say, well, do you regret that accident? And sometimes yes, but usually not, because the path that I've been given now, I've been able to help hundreds and thousands of people that have come up to me and said, you've changed my life and helped me, and I appreciate it so much. And that's reward enough from doing that. So we're going to get into sports injuries, and this is going back to the days in the early 70s. I was down at University of Oregon and they had the Olympic trials down there, and I was one of the athletic trainer staff for that. And so I got to see elite athletes as well as little leaguers, and they all have challenges, and we can talk about them all, but some of the most common injuries that we'll know about is ankle sprains and knee injuries, especially ACL, which is your ligament in the middle of your knee, as well as meniscus damages. Runner's knee, which is a breakdown of your patella or kneecap underneath, and that's like a mild arthritis situation. Shin splints. I think even young people get shin splints, or another one we can call is called Osgood-Schlatter condition, which is where you have a tendon that attaches to your kneecap and then to your shin. And when young people get really strong legs at a young age, that tendon where it attaches to your shin hasn't totally developed yet, and it actually starts to tear away. So if you have a young one and all of a sudden they have pain about 3 inches below their knee, and if you touch it, they bark at you. Kids do that anyways, but they bark at you. It's a good chance that they have Osgood slaughter and those types of things. Hamstrings, tennis elbows, concussions are becoming more and more problems. Sore backs, broken bones, and all those types of situations. So obviously the best thing is if we can prevent it from happening in the first place. And with kids, I usually get them on the 90 essential nutrients at a proportion of their weight. And so if they're in the 50 pounds, they get a half a dose. If they're in the 75 pounds, they get 3/4 of a dose. And if they're over 100 pounds, then I treat them like an adult. But I think the important things with injuries is making sure that you get plenty of EFAs. So quite often I'll up the EFAs a little bit for athletes. It's going to help them with their memory. It's going to help them with their cardiovascular challenges and all that. I also add collagen to their diet, which is one of our new products. They're really popular, as well as glucogel, which is the gelatin and the glucosamine sulfate and some manganese to support tendon and ligament health. And so I get them all on that to do that. But there's some other things that are really important that people should keep in mind in preventions. And it's not done enough in the younger people. Poor training techniques. If you have a kid that's gifted, learning how to warm up and cool down is as important as doing the event itself. And stretching out and working with your body to increase flexibility will prevent so many strains on muscles and things like that. 9 times out of 10, that's it. There's some sports that they push flexibility out to the next level. And the one that first comes to me is gymnastics. If you think about what those young men and women do at a young age, they pretty much retire by the time they're 25, but it's really hard on their body with the stretching, doing the splits and flexibility and all that. Another one is I have a granddaughter who's 12 now, who dances for 2 to 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, and is into her modern dancing and her ballet. And she gets sore muscles and strains in her legs, and she goes up on point and she struggles with the discomfort in her feet and whatnot. And just by taking things like collagen and glucosamine, as well as a good multivitamin and EFAs, it reduces the chances of that going down. And so I'll really do encourage that. But you can all go on the internet and on the individual sports, look at what's good for warm ups and cool downs. And so when I first started baseball, warm up was just kind of waving your arm around in a circle a couple of times and throwing the ball and maybe swinging a bat a couple of times. And that was it. And there's a whole new game now with baseball. Weightlifting is very much involved to get the strength up, as well as working on your flexibility and range of motion with your arms and legs. I can tell you as a catcher, I could hardly fit in the Levi jeans. My thighs are so big. But I can tell you right now, I still can't touch the ground with my fingers because I never worked on the flexibility to stretch out my hamstrings and those types of situations. It just didn't seem much. My coach thought it was more important for me to do things like gorilla jumps. And if you don't know what a gorilla jump is, you squat down and you jump up in the air just a little bit. And you never fully extend either way. You just do that up and down motion that you would think a catcher would do it. Well, I was doing it with a 100-pound weight on my back and to develop my strength and things like that. But he never had me work on flexibility. So I'll encourage that things like flexibility really makes it important. Other things is your diet that you need to really think about. You need to really think about what you're putting in your mouth. If you're drinking Coca-Cola, I should say cola so I don't get sued by Coca-Cola, cola or carbonated beverages, they actually will break down the bones in your body. And I did an experiment with my grandkids once, and they laughed when I said that. And I put a chicken bone in cola, for a week, and then they came back the next week, and we took the bone out, and I could bend it without breaking it all the way, the leg bone. I could bring it all the ends all the way together. It had broken down that much structure wise. And if you think about that, and if they start drinking that, then there's a problem. And then the amount of sugar they take. So, we started to talk about the processed foods and the things like that, eating good fruits and vegetables. Fresh dairy products is good for the collagen and those types of things, as well as meat and proteins. They have to think about that. Isometric exercises are also good, and low impact exercises, as well as stability. So as far as vitamins and things like that, my big ones are collagen and vitamin C. I almost don't think you can get enough of it. And if you start to show ligament and tendons, those are really important. Almost taking vitamin C to bowel intolerance, and then collagen will help with that and will help prevent it in the first place. But you always see those people. I have a person in my particular downline whose son tore an ACL in his knee and wanted to basically, it was a partial tear. He wanted to stay and finish out the football season. And, I don't know if it was the smartest decision at the time, but we put him on a huge amount of glucogels. I think he was taking 12 a day, for example, as well as collagen. And within about 2 weeks, he was able to get back on the field, and he finished the season with everybody. And he continued it during the off season and decided they didn't need surgery. And now he coaches football. And so you can prevent some of those situations by occurring just by taking care of yourself. Also, the other thing that's commonly used now, and we're talking about things that aren't really sports or longevity products, but compression socks for your knees and ankles can be beneficial once you do those strains. Getting back to the nutritional side, I'm a big proponent of essential fatty acids, especially EFA plus that has all three styles, your omega-3, 6, and 9. Anti-inflammatories, all those are become really important in those types of things, turmeric and those types of ingredients, Cell Shield, RTQ, and those, and staying hydrated. Back in the day, I'm 70 years old, so I'll just come right out to that. My coaches were saying, "Oh, be tough. You don't need to take a drink break. Just get out there and do it." Well, that's kind of changed over the years, and that's really good. But it's really important that people stay totally hydrated in their exercises and things like that. So we talk about when to take what types of foods and when. And so I want to spend a few seconds like this. Consuming water, whether it's your pre-workout, your post-workout, or during your work or during competition, doesn't make any difference. You need to stay hydrated. Your body will lose. I've talked to long distance bicycle runners and marathon runners, and they can lose in a competition up to 12 pounds of water out of their body. But it isn't just water, right? Because in your blood and in your sweat, you have sodium in there. Everyone knows that. If you sweat and you taste it, you can taste the sodium. But there's all sorts of those trace minerals in there as well. You usually don't get cramps from sodium. You get cramps from a lack of magnesium or potassium or calcium. And so you're losing those as well. So it stays really important. Diet-wise, you want to, on a pre-workout, you want to still have moderately high carbohydrates, but you also want to have protein, and you want to avoid lots of fat. And that's true as well during the workout. Post-workout, which is a mixture of protein and carbohydrates within 30 minutes to 2 hours, is a smart way to help your body recover, as well as taking a product at longevity that's called Rebound. Rebound's an amino acid polysaccharide oligosaccharide product that's designed to help get toxins out of your muscles. When you get those toxins out of your muscles, they recover faster. So Rebound is a great drink to do while you work out or while you compete or work out heavily, and then especially after you work out to help your body recover. We designed that product especially for a retired basketball player now by the name of Theo Ratliff, who was told basically by Atlanta Hawks that he probably needed to retire because he was missing too many games due to injuries. And he was talking to a longevity member who was into radio commentator known as the Stinger. And he says, well, have you tried longevity products? And Theo went, what? And, we got him a hold with Dr. Wallach. Dr. Wallach put him on a program. And that next season, he was second string All-American, first or All-Pro, first string All Defense, and had the most block shots in the NBA. And so Atlanta traded him to Portland, which is where I live, in the outskirts of Portland, and I became good friends with Theo, and we actually developed the product for him, and he would have the players call me, and we would ship over products all over the United States, because you have to catch up to the players, and they would have it to the point where Gatorade threatened longevity with a lawsuit because Gatorade had a contract with the NBAs. And so if you watch an NBA game or you watch an NFL game or you watch any of the pro games and you see the players reach underneath their bench and grab a liquid, but it isn't in a Gatorade bottle, you can pretty well guarantee it isn't Gatorade they're drinking. But the stuff that's in the Gatorade tub, or if it's in a Gatorade cup, has to be Gatorade. That was the compromise that we did with that. But Theo retired. He has 3 lovely kids. He'll make you laugh. His wife is a beautiful woman, and she's 6'3" or 6'4", and Theo is 6'11". So their daughters are all in the 6'4", 6'6" range and play competitive volleyball. One actually, I think, is going into professional beach volleyball. The other one, I think she's got 1 more year left in college, and then she'll make her decisions. So it's really important. The other thing is I want to say is that I always tell people, because they're always concerned about their weight and whatnot, on your rest day, you don't have to eat as many calories as you do during your competitive periods. And so taking less calories, but still keeping good protein is a good way to do it. You have to match your carbohydrates and your protein when you work out in your training days as fuel, because carbohydrates do that. You don't want to take an excessive amount, but there has been some interesting studies that you could go to with from University of oh my gosh, go back to my cheat notes, Loyola Marymount, there it is, that has done some studies on with athletes and things like that. The other person that's really fun to talk to, and I don't know if you guys have had him on the show, he's kind of hard to follow, not as hard as Doc, but not kind of hard to follow sometimes, and that's Tangy. And Tangy is another designer of products like I am, but he had a fun roommate when he was in college at Michigan by the name of Tom Brady, and that was his roommate. And so it's always fun to talk to him about it, and he has some interesting ideas about it, and is very, very good resource, and would be another one to do that. And so I will say that if you feel a muscle or a ligament or a meniscus challenge start to twinge, ease up early. If you fix the problem early and not let it progress, then the chances of getting 100% better without needing doctor's care is totally possible. If you've done to the point where it's excruciating pain and you don't want to do it, then you need to go to your athletic trainer or possibly a doctor to see what's going on with your body, and then get information to make a logical decision. But the key thing to start out with, I'm going to tell everybody, is to take the 90 essential nutrients, a little bit before, a little bit during, and a little bit after your workouts, and then make sure that you're taking them along with the Rebound while you're recovering. And so I just want to do that. Sorry about the phone. I thought I disconnected it. Apparently I did.
We can't hear it.
Oh, good. I'll disconnect it. And things like that. And so we'll just work on that. The other thing and we'll take questions at the end. I know CJ, of course, has his 25 questions all lined, or AJ has his 20 questions all lined up. But, I want to talk about one other subject, because right now is the time of year we should all be talking about it. So we've talked about the mine that we have in central Utah that we take advantage of, that we get our plant-derived minerals from. And so people always say, well, you grind up this humic shale, which is a ancient compost pile, and you mix it with water, and you do osmosis with it, where the water doesn't have a concentration of minerals in it, mix it with something that does, and then they equalize, and that's how we make our plant-derived minerals. Pretty simple. Sounds simple, but a little more complicated than you think it is. But what do you do with the humic shale once you're done with it? Well, we actually dry it out, and we grind it up so it's more or less a very coarse coffee grounds. Very coarse, more like flaxseed, if you've ever seen raw flaxseed. And we bag it, or we put it in jars or whatnot. And we can put it in a 4.5 pound container, which is really closer to 5. Becca's holding it up there. We also have a larger container. It also comes in a 50-pound bag. If we say 40, but it actually is 50 pounds because it has moisture in it. We want to make sure everyone gets a full 40 pounds. And then for the farmers out there, we don't overly advertise it, but we sell it by the pallet. And the farmers can incorporate it into their soil and improve their crops. And the story I'll tell you behind that is that one time I was lecturing with a distributor in Japan, and we were talking to one of the growers in Japan. Now in Japan, most of the farms are very small. They're the size of a quarter acre is a family farm, if that much. And the government comes in and rates your crop, no matter what. If he sold his entire harvest at a 3. In other words, he wasn't making any money to save for his retirement. So he heard about us and came and talked to us about it, and was thinking about putting the plant-derived minerals on his farm to see if it would help. And we were kind of curious to see how it would help him. And so we made him a deal that we would send him over the blooming minerals in the 50-pound sacks. And I'll talk about how much to use in a few seconds, but if you would use it twice a year, and that's the key, twice a year, that we wanted to see what would happen over a 2-year period with his farm. And so at the time we were talking to him, it was right about now in the spring, and we sent over the first batch. And what we wanted him to do is plant his strawberries, or in your case, plant whatever you'd have, your tomatoes, your strawberries, your cucumbers, you can imagine corn, anything there. And then what you do is you sprinkle the blooming minerals on top of the soil after you plant the seeds or the starters. And then what happens is that it rains, or as you water it, the water lands on top of the minerals first and then goes into the soil, sinking in. And as the roots develop, it goes into the roots. Now, if you've never done much biology and you don't really know how that works, roots are kind of a two-way system. It's fascinating science if you ever have a chance to listen to someone lecture about it. But basically what it does is it will absorb nutrients into the plant, and in the form of minerals and amino acids that are broken down by our friends the worms and whatnot. It goes up into the plants. The plants gets photosynthesis from the sun, turns it into vitamins, and then what it doesn't need, it sends back down, and it goes back into the soil. And this transformation goes back and forth during the entire growing season of a plant. And the neat thing about it is that when this system works ideal, there's hardly any bugs in the field, because bugs want to break down plants that are dying. Well, if your plants are healthy and happy, the bugs don't bug it. But when it starts to die, or it's not, this system isn't working right, or it doesn't have all the nutrients that it needs, then all of a sudden you have a bug problem. So that should kind of make everyone kind of go, oh, okay, do we have it still in the soil? Well, how did Mother Nature put the minerals back in the soil? Well, what would happen is typically farmland is in the fields or on the side of mountains. And we would have floods, or we would have what it's called whitewater or glacier milk come down from the things and be put in the water, and they would go on the soil. And those are all density rich situations with minerals, and it would feed it. But now, because we only pay our farmers for yield, not quality in most cases, they want to get multiple harvests, and they never want to give their fields a chance to rest and recover. And because of that, the mineral content constantly goes down. And there again, you can go, if you don't believe me, you can go on the internet and you can start seeing what the typical orange crop, how much vitamin C did an orange have 15 years ago or 25 years ago, and how much does it have now? Because I'm going to tell you, it's significantly less. So how do we do this? So we had it, put it on his farm, and then he did it through his harvest, and he only did it in 2 rows. And he had like 8 rows of strawberries, so that he had basically a placebo and then ours. And he did everything identical, same amount of water, same water, all that. In the first harvest, his strawberries in the non-blooming mineral region was still a 3. In the 2 rows that were mineral, in one season with one application, it moved up to an 8. So from a 3 to an 8. And he was happy as he can plan, because that almost doubled the amount that he got for those 2 rows, almost as much as he got for his 6 rows of the 3 grade. And so, and we said, well, it's going to get better. And he goes, well, okay. And he goes, so once you pull it out and you take care of your bed for the winter, you want to put another batch of minerals on it and incorporate it in the soil and let the soil rest and recover. Now, if you're into CO2 and those types of things in our society now, and you don't want to put CO2, the worst thing you can do is rototill a garden and leave bare dirt. And so it's okay to let grass grow. You just want to make sure that when it's time to do the harvest again, that you create the spot where you can put more minerals down. So he did that. He prepared his soil for the winter. He did it the way we told it to. And then in the spring, he did it again. And the next season, and he then did it he was still curious. So he did 2 rows of the stuff that he's never touched. He left that as the placebo, but now he did 6 rows of the stuff. Every single row that had the 3 treatments got a 10, every one. And that's just in literally 1.5 growing cycles. And so he has been using our product ever since. And so there's a couple different ways it's commonly used. Some people get the blooming minerals in a liquid state when they're in a farm, or if they have a greenhouse or something like that, and they can dilute it and put it in a drip irrigation system. Or if you have it in your indoor plants or things like that, you can get water and add a tablespoon per quart and spray your plants with it. They'll love you for it, and things like that. Or during the growing season, you can go out there and spray your tomatoes, or spray your cucumbers and things like that, and they like it a lot, as well as put it in the soil. Now, the rule of thumb here, this seems to be the most common question. How much do you put? So I mathematically figured out a good program, but it sometimes makes people scratch their head. First, measure your bed. How many square feet do you have? And so if you have 10 by 10, it's 100 square feet, isn't it? If it's 3 by 6, it's the 18 square feet. Per 100 square feet, you need 12 pounds of blooming minerals. 12 pounds. So if you have 50 square feet, you need 6 pounds. If you have, and you have to just figure out the math, and you can figure it out how much you do it. And then you spread it evenly. And here's the trick. And so if a typical cucumber ball of roots is usually bigger than a softball, but smaller than a bowling ball, right? It's about this big, just a little bit bigger than a softball. Well, you want to make sure that the blooming minerals is that circumference around the seeds and whatnot. If it's a bigger plant with a bigger ball, like a tree or something like that, for apples and whatnot, that ball could be 8 feet in diameter or 6 feet in diameter. Well, then you need to incorporate the minerals a little bit further out because you want the roots to be accessible to the minerals. Same thing for your indoor pots. If you pull a potted plant out, typically there isn't roots on the outer, 15-20% of your pot, is there? And so you want to make that concentration in the center. If you spray it, you want to spray it on the flower, or that to be idealistically. How often can you spray? You can spray 2 to 3 times a week if you want. I do it personally once a week. And so right now we're just getting our beds ready. We went and got our Miracle Grow organic compost. We take the top little bit of layer off because for some reason our cat found its way into the raised beds and we don't particularly want that there. So we'll take that away and put it in another spot. And then we'll put some new compost and add some new minerals to it. And we'll start planting. Now, unfortunately, we're at 1,500 square feet. We kind of live in the Northwest. So we struggle at growing tomatoes because it doesn't get hot until about 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if it gets hot. And the sun goes down at 6. So that period of good sunlight and heat is short. People that grow tomatoes typically will have 8 hours of hot, right? And they can grow unbelievable tomatoes. And the one example is that I have a distributor by the name of Peggy Lapsley, and her yield is over 20 pounds per tomato plant. And typically they grow 6 feet plus in height. And she gets 20 pounds of tomatoes per. She makes enough that she takes care of her whole community with tomato sauce and whatnot that she has. And same thing with cucumbers. And she did the new one technique where you get a 5-gallon bucket and you plant about 3 cucumber plants in it, and then you let it hang over the side and go down. Well, she hung the pot up so it was her height, so she's about 5'2", and the plant grew to the ground. And she had problems with the rabbits eating the cucumbers because it made its way down there and whatnot. And so kind of keep it in mind, but there's lots of new ways. I know that you can hit strawberry pots are made that way where you can hang them and do those types of things now, and you'll get unbelievable great yield with it. Now, if you have someone that's interested in farming with this, Richard at youngdebbie.com, reach out to me. I'll help them with the farming aspect because it's a different application, not so much different per yield, but either they do a lot of drip irrigation and they have a special water system they do via their tractors, and it's a different math a little bit to it. They want to incorporate it. But the one story I'll tell you about that is we have a distributor that's active with the Mennonites and the Amish back in the Midwest, and they sell their crops to Whole Foods and what's the other big one in the Midwest that does the upper level groceries, and they sell out to them because the vegetables are just so much better. But what I found funny is that the stores don't group buy. Each store produce manager is responsible for his own buying, and they go check out each other's produce, and all of a sudden one started to have better produce than the other, and they figured out where he was buying it from, and then they say, well, I'll buy your tomatoes for this much a pound or a case and whatnot. So it created a little bit of price war, but they were able to get more of the Amish and Mennonites doing the process, and supply and demand balanced out, and everyone made it happy. But we can't guarantee that it will increase your profit. We hope that it will. We encourage that it will, but things like that. The other thing it's really fun to do with this stuff, and especially when you want to get your kids involved with it, because when you teach them good nutrition and what it means and how you can find it and whatnot, is that have you ever noticed that in your counter all through the place, it says fresh produce, right? And the packaging says fresh produce. And right now we're in winter in the United States. So that means one of two things. It's either done in a hothouse or they bring it in south from the border, right? Well, if they bring it in south of the border, what's the chance of it really being fresh and had the chance to be vine ripened? Almost none, because it takes over a month to get here. So they pick it green and send it up here, and then they expose it to a certain gas that makes it look pretty. It's really not fresh. And so there's a reason why when you eat those fresh vegetables, they don't have any flavor or squat. Well, that's because they're picked green. They never had a chance to do that. But when you start doing the stuff, the blooming minerals and things like that, and they start eating there, they're going to notice the distinct difference. And if you're my age, you're going to say, this tastes like the stuff I used to remember when I was young, especially the watermelons and things like that. The strawberries, just unbelievable flavor and whatnot. The other thing that you'll see is that if you take a hothouse tomato and you put it in a pitcher of water, it'll float. Well, that's because when you cut it open, it has these huge empty cavities that are in it that will trap the air, and the meat of the tomato isn't dense, and therefore it floats. And when you use the blooming minerals, those cavities disappear, and the density of the meat of the vegetable increases, and the tomatoes sink. And that's true with the strawberries too. How many of you cut open a strawberry that they say it's fresh and you cut it open and the inner 25% is hollow? I think all of you can raise your hand and go, yes, it's not meant to be that way. It meant that's just telling you it was picked green. And things like that. And so spotting this stuff makes all the difference in the world. And when you start realizing that, then you start figuring out that sometimes canning your own fruits and vegetables is actually better for you than eating the stuff that's available in the stores in the middle of the winter or late, very beginning of spring, because it isn't fresh. And it's true, the stuff in Mexico and Southern California and Florida are going to be ripening sooner than the stuff in Northern California, Oregon, Washington, New England. It's just, that's just farming, people. And if you start thinking about it, then you can treat yourself better. And using stuff like the blooming minerals and things like that just makes a huge, huge difference. Now I will tell you that the 2.5 and the 4.5 is available on auto ship, but the 50-pound bags, they can't ship it to you for free. And so there'll be a surcharge on the 50-pound bag. But I will tell you this, is that I always buy it in a 50-pound bag because, I can just buy a jar and get free, but, it doesn't have a shelf life. And I just have to keep it dry. And I can use it year in, year out. And so I take advantage of it. I think I'm on my bag that's about 3 years old right now. I'll probably finish it out this year because we have a raised bed. My wife calls it her coffin because she gave me a hard time because we have rabbits and whatnot. So I put it on 2-foot legs, and then it's a 2.5-foot tall box that, so it's 4 feet when it gets to her, and it's 6 feet long by 2.5 feet wide. So you can imagine what it looks like. But we have 3 of those on our deck, and that keeps everyone else except for our cat, who's very talented climbing the plastic mesh around it, away, but we'll work on that problem. And, the difference on our fruits and vegetables, my daughter figured it out, and she has raised beds. And she asked if I could bring it over. Well, first she asked me to make the raised beds, but being a good father, I did that. And then we incorporated over there, and she grows sunflowers that everyone in her whole place is envious. And then she has a flower, hydrangeas. Is that the one that's all purple and can be various colors? There we go, hydrangeas. And she put it on those, and it was incredible. And then I told her to go get a little bit of that stuff that's anti-moss for your roof. And that's basically zinc or copper. And I go, just take a teaspoon and sprinkle that around the plants and watch what happens to the color. because then you see people that sometimes it's green and sometimes it's blue and sometimes it's purple, and you always wonder how they get the different colors. It's which mineral is in the soil at the highest concentration. And so you can actually play the game with your yard by doing a little bit of sprinkling like that and get all this tremendous change in colors on your hydrangeas if you have 3 or 4 of them, and you just love them. Plus, the other thing is the disadvantage of that plant is that its blooming season is really short. Well, when she started to use the blooming minerals, the blooming seasons bloom stayed better for over twice the season. And so just, is it happy? And she doesn't have a bug problem. Go figure. So, just think about what you're doing when you grow your plants and thinking about the benefits that you're treating yourself year round. If you're an athlete and you're a serious athlete or just a weekend warrior, you want to stay healthy. I would stick my leg up in the air right now, but I'm wearing a boot right now because I tore a ligament in my foot. Well, dumb me, but I have increased my collagen. I have increased my glucogel. I could take the collagen joint version of it, but I play around too much with stuff. And so I take the original and I mix it with the glucogel and the MSM, and I put it all together and make my own little blend and put it in my shakes. But it just works out better that way. And I encourage everyone to think about it. Someone flagged it. What about Osteo-fx? That's part of the Mindy 90 in my book. And so the calcium, the magnesium in that's absolutely a yes, and it helps you. Remember Osteo-fx, I'm a firm believer of taking it before you go to bed because it'll also help relax your muscles and you'll sleep better. So those 2 things. So I barked out 15 minutes. I'm sure we have questions. So Becca, I'll let you have the first questions, and then we'll sneak over to AJ because I know he's going to have 1 or 2, and then for everybody else.
All right. Yes. Thank you so much, Richard. And we've got some questions and comments in regards to the blooming minerals. The first one I'm going to answer. Barbara is asking, she says, I have a garden 4 by 8 by 2, and that's feet. So that's 32 square feet, Barbara.
Yeah, it's basically cubic. 4 by 8. So yeah, she's 32 feet.
Yes.
So it's 4 pounds, which is what's in front of you.
This is all you need, Barbara. So this is 4.5 pounds. If you have 100 square feet, you need 3 of these to cover your 100 square foot garden. So, and these are great. It's like you said, it's like ground up, and I tried to show it a little bit where you've got, granules all the way to powder, and you just top dress your garden after you plant your seed. Now the next question has to do with, what if I'm getting plants that have already sprouted and putting them in? I know Jill said that she'll take and put some in the bottom of the hole that she's putting the already sprouted plant in, the starts. What would you do in that case, Richard?
I would determine about how big the ball is, and then I'd sprinkle it on top of the soil in the diameter of the size of the ball, and then soak it and let it sink down into your dirt.
Okay, so I know my dad was a profuse gardener, so we did a lot of gardening growing up, and for the most part, especially with trees, what you see above ground is what you're going to have below ground. And on some of your fruits and vegetables are going to be similar like that. So that's why you do the ring, because that's where the roots are going to be reaching out, looking for their food, which is the minerals, right?
Right. Yeah.
So awesome. Thank you for that.
I kind of do that ring. Think about it though. Okay, let's do this. So you poke your finger in the dirt. If you put the blooming minerals in, and then you put your plant on top of that, and then it waters, wait.
It's going to go
the
deeper.
Minerals are going to go down. They're not going to go up, right? And we want to keep it around those minerals as long as we can. So by putting it around the top and then watering and let it soak down, it will get to the roots a little bit better that way, in my opinion.
Okay, now I've got my quart watering pitcher, and I will put probably about a cup of the granules in here, and then fill it up with water. But I leave it set at least 24 hours because I want that chlorine to evaporate before watering my garden. Am I still getting the minerals as this is pulling from the bottom? Am I still getting the minerals in the water solution itself?
So there's a way you can kind of cheat if you have that 4.5 pound bucket, and what you can do is you can get a colander that's really coarse and dump your bucket in and shake it out. The fine powder that you get, put in your water. The coarser
Okay.
stuff, put around your plants, because it will
Okay.
disintegrate and dissolve as it gets wet. And then when it's in your pitcher of water, if you want to speed up your chlorine evaporation, put it in the warmest spot in your house, because
Mhm.
the heat will evaporate, but it'll also, osmosis occurs when you control the barometric pressure, the time, and the temperature. And so if you allow your warm water to warm up more and you stir it, you'll get more osmosis throughout your water, and then as you drain it out, away you go. Either that or get a
Okay.
bottle of liquid.
Well, yeah, I've got the liquid here. I don't know why I haven't been using the liquid, but you know, well, I have 12. Um, so I think I'll start using the liquid here in the house. And it does make for just beautiful, beautiful plants, even if they're not produce that you're going to be eating, which Barbara had mentioned also that she had put some plant-derived minerals and she had lots of foliage, but not a lot of fruit. Somebody mentioned that she may have over-fertilized or put too much minerals on.
Or it could have been a bad growing season. It isn't just that one variable. So I would probably cut back on her dose and whatnot like that. If she has a pH meter, I know I'm weird, I have a pH meter. You can see what the pH of your soil is. And by doing that, you can kind of dial in certain vegetables, like a particular pH, and you may need to add some potash or something like that into the soil to get your soil into more of that ideal pH range. And you can go online and find out what the pH of everything is and figure out how to do that. It just takes a calculator and help you do it. Or if you're as old
Yeah,
as
I
me, I
use
could still use a slide ruler.
There you go. Yep. So I used the pH meter in Washington when I had my blueberries and raspberries, and making sure that they were the right pH, and then also the hydrangea that likes the right pH, with the different minerals, also acidity in the soil. So um, there's just I think it's just a science in itself, and I absolutely love to put it into action.
Well,
Now
the other thing
Nancy had
really
a
quick is
question.
you should write a book on what you do every year, a journal.
Oh yeah.
And when you have not just when you have a good season or a bad season, every season you can turn around and say, I changed this, or I did this, or I did this. This is when I put it in. This is when I harvest, all those types of things. The temperatures and things like that. It was a hot summer, it was a wet summer, whatever. And then you can start comparing, and then you'll be able to dial in faster. It still takes 3 or 4 years to really dial
Yeah,
it in.
absolutely. And anything that's done simply and takes little effort, you you just don't enjoy it as much.
Hmm.
You really, I like getting my hands dirty and seeing it evolve and become more and more productive with every year. So Nancy, she has two questions. First one, in Florida's sandy soil, will earthworm casings and a lot of composting be enough to revitalize the soil for nutrient-rich food?
I would still add the blooming minerals, but I'd probably cut in some compost.
Mm-hmm.
Almost every area now has some sort of compost. I know that they'll actually pick up my fruits and vegetables, and they don't want me to put it in a trash. They want me to put it in a central pan, and then they the garbage company picks it up, they make the compost and give it back to the community. More and more communities are getting into that, but I'm a big believer of putting the compost, and that really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of plants that prefer that sandy loam rather than a clay type soil. So that's why Florida is green and beautiful too. Her next question is, what do you recommend if you've developed some fusion or arthritis in 2 spots on the spine due to a 45-year-old injury? There is no pain until I started going to the chiropractor because there was fusion in my neck causing, she says, incarceration of my 10 cranial nerves causing AFib. What are your thoughts on that?
So on anything with the spinal column or an extreme on the joints, I like our liquid glucogel, item number 13216. I get people to get better results on it. After they're on that for about 30 days, and they're going to be on it for a longer than that, I would then try to find a really good massage therapist, not a chiropractor, a massage therapist, and get a massage and have her or him work on that area more effectively, and they'll probably see some positive results. Can we guarantee it? No. But I've had better success with that one product than any of our other glucogels within our line.
All right, and that is the glucogel liquid. So that's not the glucogel plus, but the glucogel liquid, correct?
Correct. That's why I always give the number 13216.
Not all of us have all those numbers memorized like you do. You're just like incredible, Richard. So Marlene is asking, where do you get Bloomin' Minerals? Marlene, get back with your longevity associate. On their website, you will find Bloomin' Minerals. And let's go over to AJ.
Well, Richard, lucky for you, you answered a bunch of the questions I was gonna ask. So the only thing I have to add is, did you know that Theo's 2 sons are ranked number 10 and number 26, his twins? He's got older twins, and they're ranked number 10 and number 26 in basketball, and they're going to USC next year. So
I wish them a lot of luck. Now,
yeah.
I'll tell you, the baseball player who took up my knee went to USC, so.
That's not your school. I guess it would have been better if they went to Oregon. But
well, no, Oregon didn't have a baseball program back there. I would have gone to Oregon. Went to Pepperdine.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Where is Pepperdine?
Down by USC, down in Southern California.
Oh, is it? Is it? Okay. You always see them on TV, but I never knew where they were. Well, thank you. And yeah, I played a show of yours yesterday, and someone asked, where do you get the name Dr. Dirt? And of course, I have my own opinion on how you got it, but maybe you could just settle the score finally, and just because I think you've told us, but.
So I was doing a lecture tour with Dr. Wallach and Steve Wallach and a motivational speaker by the name of Doug Fireball. And he was a great motivator speaker. He did a lot of work with longevity. But I was giving a lecture and showing people how we make the minerals and osmosis and whatnot. And I was wearing my lab coat and would do it right in front of them and whatnot. And I would put the jar out, and then I'd pour it out, and I'd find some poor guinea pig that didn't know what they were getting into to come up, and we would drink a cup together. And he came up after the lecture to do a little motivational speech of his own, and turned around and said, you will never get me to drink that stuff. And then when you do, you'll be a Dr. Dirt. Well, the last day we were in Sydney, and Steve Wallach and I were up there, and I got Steve to join me in drinking it. And but before we had it staged behind the stage, so he didn't know it was going up. We asked Doug Fireball to come up and thank him for all his days in Australia, and that we had a special gift for him. And so we had the minerals all ready for him and made him drink it with him up there. And ever since, the nickname Double Dr. Dirt has stuck.
Fantastic.
That was. Go ahead, AJ.
Do you have another secret Dr. Wallach story for?
I have to stay on his good side, you know. I can't tell everything as they're going on. I think one of the amusing stories is we were doing in the Midwest a lecture, and it wasn't a really big one. There was probably 50 people there, which, you know, it was exciting for everybody. And he gave his lecture, and I was in the room and Steve was in the room. We were in the background, and he finished his lecture and he goes, "Now we're going to answer all your questions now, but I have to do one thing first. Richard, will you come up and answer all his questions?" And he ran off into the bathroom, was gone for 10 minutes. And I didn't know I was going to be the person doing the questions. I'm because I had to explain to him, I'm a doctor. I can't quite answer the question like you're phrasing the question and things like that. And then he came back up and thanked me, but he didn't pick his son. He picked me. So
Well,
anyway,
you've been around quite a while.
We're coming up to 30 years old for longevity next year. What's my wall say? April 15th of 26. In a month, we'll be 30 years old.
1 month. Less than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, less than that. Wow.
Next time I'm on the call with you. Maybe I'll bring a little cake with candles.
Oh, there you go. We could all do. Of course, it's got to be gluten-free cake, right?
That wouldn't be a problem. I'll just ask Karen to make me. She made a chocolate pistachio cake for her friends in the other room.
Nice. That sounds yummy. That sounds yummy. Well, Richard, one more question. So Barbara wants to know, she says she has pH strips. Can she use those instead of a pH tester, soil tester?
So it may not be as accurate, but yes, it'll give you a good start.
All right. Fantastic. If I could get the co-hosts up on the screen with us, that would be absolutely fabulous, as I'm so thankful we do not have to do this all by ourselves with all the different pieces that we have going on with the live stream, pushing it onto all the different platforms where if you're watching us, whether it's live or on a replay, if there's a way to comment. Let us know that you're there. But most important, make sure that you subscribe to our channels and share with a friend. Now, folks, if you're not already part of our email list, go to dailywithdoc.com. As this program is sponsored by dailywithdoc.com, it is not meant to take the place of your primary care physician, nor is it meant to treat, diagnose, or cure any disease. But folks, you as an empowered individual have a lot of things you can do all on your own to help support the God-given body you have been gifted with. And that's what this program is all about. And Richard, thank you so much for all of the contribution that you have given, not just today, but throughout the existence of Daily with Doc. And I think we may have even had you on when we were Ask Doc Live prior, or that stint where it was Ask Doc Daily. You know, we've had a few different renditions of our show, and I am super excited that you have been part of us as part of the Longevity family as well. And oh, there's the birthday cakes. Thank you. And here on the screen with us, we have my executive production manager, Ruth Ellen, who helps with scheduling. She also pulls the Zoom that you are watching right now, puts the graphics with it, and then pushes that out to the different platforms. Thank you, Ruth Ellen. We have Sherry, who's part of our tech crew, as she helps with the setup of where those different platforms are that get the live stream. Thank you, Sherry. We have Albert And where did Marilyn go?
Marilyn,
But Albert is here.
Marilyn, please turn on your camera.
Yeah. Albert is here joining us from South Africa, as he is letting people into the Zoom, and he is our gatekeeper. Thank you so much, Albert. And if you are calling in the middle of the night in the United States and you hear an amazing accent, that's Albert, as he's got the lines covered while we are trying to rest. But then you have AJ, who just never sleeps, and he is our Director of Marketing. So thank you, AJ, for all that you do, as he has been very instrumental in helping us get out on all the different platforms. And if you're here live with us and you've got that chat open, you see how hard Marilyn works, as we call her Speedy Fingers, as she's doing dictation of what's being spoken, putting it into text so that you can take screenshots and or just refer back and rewrite to take your notes. So thank you so much, Marilyn, for all you do. Richard, once again, thank you for joining us. I know you don't have to, but we always love it when you do. And bless us with your presence and your wisdom and knowledge. Folks, my name is Becca Dukes, and as a certified holistic health coach, as a certified naturopathic practitioner, and also the director of student services for the Institute of Holistic Health, it is my honor to be able to share this information that allows you to take action. If your knowledge is one thing, but if you don't take action on that knowledge, then what good is the knowledge itself? Get back with the person that shared this program with you. If you'd like more information on how you also can become a certified holistic health coach, go to coach.dailywithdoc.com. Again, that's coach.dailywithdoc.com, or get back with the person that shared this program with you and see if they know anything about the Certified Holistic Health Coach course. Richard, I can't wait to have you on next month.
We'll have fun.
And we'll
Hey,
do this. We'll do our
Can I
birthday
steal
celebration.
2 more minutes?
Yes, go for it.
So back in the old days, we were always asked, being upper distributors, to do something for our community. And so I've always carried that forward. And 4 times a year, I go down and cook for the homeless in our community. And a couple of weeks ago, I was cooking for about 75 people, making lasagna for them and things like that. Karen went down to me, and we had a homeless individual, or a person that was living in a shelter. We don't ask them. Came in and he had a guitar and he was playing a guitar, and it really sounded nice. And we looked at him, and you know, he was probably in his 40s, but he looked like he was in his 50s or 60s, kind of run down, tired. But it sounded really good. And then I looked at it, and his guitar only had 3 strings on it, and the wood was starting to peel on the face of the guitar and whatnot. And so we kind of looked at him, and I says, you know, I have guitars at home. Would you mind if I brought you some guitar strings? And big smile on his face. And I says, all you have to do is keep playing and entertaining people. And so Karen and I came home, and she told some of her people in her knitting guild, and one of them says, my husband just passed away. He has a guitar. Do you want to give him a whole new guitar? And so we brought it back here. It needed some work on it. And so I did some work on the guitar. So if you've never noticed in the background, I always have a guitar in my room with me. We have it all ready. And next Friday, when he has his free dinner, we're going to take him down and give him a new set of strings for his guitar that he has, and then give him another guitar and just say, just pay it forward and give it to someone that you think needs it, because a little bit of music improves everybody's life.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I love music. It's a great way to distract you. And whether things are good or bad, music is always there to help raise the mood. And I've got Coach Rod messaging me saying, you know, nobody bothers Richard as much as I do. And tell him I need more than a 2-word response. So, you know, some things 2 words is just all you need, right?
I can cut and paste him all my emails, and he can respond to them too.
There you go. There you go.
We'll work
totally
at it. We'll work
understand
at
that. All right. Well, thank you again, Richard. And thank you, everybody, for joining us here live in the Zoom or out on any of the different streams. Make sure that you share this with somebody that you know, especially if you love them, because it could be life-saving information. And those gardeners, don't forget to share this with the gardeners so that they too can have the most, not just yield, but nutrition coming from their gardens. Until next time, bye for now.
This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We're honored to continue and share the teachings of the founding father of science of epigenetics, Dr. Joel Wallach. This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We're honored